Welcome to episode number 22 of Colorado TechCast.
My co-founder today had picked me up and asked me what had gone on, and then said that she wondered if I was interested in starting something up. And we both just had an incredible passion for leadership and tech and trying to broaden participation. We came up with the idea and quickly did a bunch of research. And one of the things that we found that was just pretty extraordinary is that at the federal level alone, we had been spending over $4 billion a year on STEM programs. And at the same time, we were watching a yet dwindling set of females and students of color going into the fields. We started to think very critically about, why these programs and experiences were not producing the results that we had wanted. And we found that so many of them were very place-based, that we were using career predictors that looked at the past to predict the future, and that's not going to solve, kind of the problems that we have today. And the more and more we looked, we just felt like that we had a space where we could really make an impact. And so we decided in January of 2015 to start the company, and we've been together ever since.
Hey everybody, Trapper here. Thanks for joining me on this episode of Colorado TechCast. Colorado TechCast is a weekly podcast where I interview CEOs and founders of Colorado-based technology startups. Join me each episode as I explore the Colorado technology community from the inside out. Today, I talk with Melissa Risteff, CEO and co-founder of Courgion, a social enterprise generously supported by the National Science Foundation, AT&T Aspire, and the Colorado Office of Economic Development. Their mission is to inspire underrepresented students to pursue STEM pathways and fuel education confidence to succeed in the classroom. So Melissa, tell me a little bit about your company.
Courgion was founded in January of 2015, and our mission is to inspire underrepresented students to pursue career pathways in science, technology, engineering, and math.
So underrepresented, how do you define that?
When we think about underrepresented students, we're really trying to mirror a diverse demographic and help everyone find their STEM identity and really try to expand and broaden the participation of who can succeed in STEM fields.
STEM is huge right now with the technology advancements that we're seeing nationwide, but also in Colorado. So based in Colorado, is your footprint national, or are you focused right now just on the Front Range?
A lot of our early successes were in our backyard, where we partnered very closely with St. Vrain, Adams 12 5-Star, and Denver Public Schools. In fact, they were our first three that worked really closely with us on our National Science Foundation research. But as we've gained traction over the past 3 years, we now are starting to have a more national presence.
So is your background in education, or how did you get involved in this?
My background is in tech. So I'm one of the lucky to have started my career and spent over 2 decades in technology, dominantly in the software world. Started my career at General Electric and spent a good number of years there and at Sun Microsystems. So my experience with education technology started at Sun and also at other companies where I kind of got bit by the bug of wanting to really make an impact with tech. And I love the ability to move fast and take products to market, but I also was looking for that mission-driven and purpose-driven part of my work, and I found it in education.
So is there something missing from the current educational system that you thought you could solve, or what was the gap you identified?
Yes, there is. I have a couple of really big passion points, and I think part of it is having been a hiring manager in technology for so many years, was frustrated by 2 different things. Number one, not being able to find diverse candidate pools to select from, but also once hiring, people into the company, would just find that regardless of their degree and pathway that they selected, that there was just so much on-the-job training required, because we're still, after many, many years, teaching students content and knowledge and not giving them the skills that they need to succeed in the workplace.
And technology advances so quickly, you can't just teach content anymore. You have to teach the ability to think and to reason, right?
Yeah, I think in reason there's a whole host of essential and fundamental skills that we focus on helping kids to develop through our technology and through our classroom experiences. But, you say that things have changed so much, but, what's funny is that in the world of computing education, we have known for 25 years what a typical software engineering or software development team looks like, and yet we aren't teaching kids all the skills that they need to be successful in tech. We're teaching them about coding, which really only represents about 38% of the total skills required to be successful. So where things have changed quickly, and we've seen a lot of development in the context of design or in cloud computing, really not doing a good job of teaching kids those types of skills. But other things that have been around and pretty consistent for many, many years, we also haven't done a good job of getting educational systems up to speed there either.
So is this in like middle school and high school that you're primarily focused?
Yeah, we are focused primarily on middle and high school students, and we are focused on a couple of different parts. First, career exploration, so getting them to really understand what opportunities and pathways are out there. Secondly, helping them to pursue those pathways by building out occupational and academic plans to meet those. And then thirdly, helping them to cultivate occupational and essential skills that help to prepare them for the future of work.
How do you go about identifying the skills? You said 38% is based on coding. What is the balance of that, and how do you build curriculum around that?
So a lot of the ways in which we evaluate the skills that are required are by doing deep research from a workforce analytics perspective and looking at other third-party research that looks at the skills required by looking at job postings. And, when I said 38% of the skills are programming, that's just in the technical set. That's just in the computer science space. But, there's a whole host of the other essential skills. And those are, kind of being published by many different workforce analytics and workforce agencies that are out there scouring, looking at, what are most jobs going to need for the future. And you hit on a couple of them, but, clearly teaching kids how to think, understanding critical thinking, problem solving, design, making sure that they have solid communication skills and that they really are able to have collaboration and teamwork that makes them effective working in any industry and organization.
So do you install your program into individual school districts, or are you a private education system? How do you guys deliver your content?
Yeah, all the work we do is hand in hand with partners, and our partners are either youth development organizations or school districts or schools individually. And we go into the classroom and partner side by side with educators in order to bring the experience to the students.
So is it like an additional class that they would take, or is it like an elective, or how does it look to a student?
Yeah, that's a great question. Super important to us is that in order to broaden participation, we really are trying to work with partners who are willing to bring us into more generalized classrooms. So not necessarily electives per se, because we really do want to impact all the students because they all need exposure to these careers. However, what we've seen is a little bit different in middle school than high school. In the middle school, we seem to be working directly with STEM classrooms and also counselors and advisors. In the high school, we're seeing that we're really focused more on the pathways around technology, computer science, career and technical education specifically, so directly into those classrooms where they're already being taught core express concepts and we layer in as a supplement on top. So we provide units and lessons and modules as part of those classrooms.
How long does the overall program take? Is this like something that the students would take for part of the year, multiple years? What's the duration of the program?
Yeah, it depends on really the problems that individual districts and or schools are trying to solve. In some cases, we're working with schools that are trying to bring apprenticeships or internships there. In others, they're trying to really push enrollment for concurrent enrollment or dual enrollment programs that help students to earn college credits and to take college-level material while they're still in high school. And in other cases, we're really just trying to have pathway retention. So we want kids to get interested in the STEM fields, we want them to build STEM skills, and we don't want them to opt out when they have the opportunity to. And another really interesting use case that we solve for, too, is where there are schools of choice and particular pathways that we're trying to have kids opt into. They may have a big decision in the 9th grade about where to go to school, and they need to make sure that they choose the school that has the programs and the pathways that they're supporting their journeys. So we help a lot of kids in middle school prepare for that decision that they need to be making.
So when you say decisions on school, would this be like picking a magnet high school, or are you thinking even further off, like preparing them for college?
No, actually, well, I'll just use Denver Public Schools as an example. They're an amazing system that affords for pathways, and certain pathways are only hosted or sponsored at individual high schools. So if you want to be in the Tech Connect pathway or the Engineering Connect or the Med Connect, you need to know that that's your pathway, and then you need to choose the school of choice that allows you to continue on that path. So this is directly in the public school system.
Describe a module that the students would interact with.
So as an example, one unit as an example would be that a student would learn about what a product manager does, and they would be experienced to a real role model who's in that job. And that role model would serve as kind of an advisor or a guide for the student and help them to understand what it's like to do their job. And then the student learns about the characteristics of that job and watches some interactive video and plays some card games and ultimately arrives at the end to tell them whether or not that's the best fit career for them. And after they experience that occupation at the highest level, they then go do challenges, which are authentic real-world problems that they would solve. And it takes them through a context of micro-lessons, practice, and then hands-on activities, and ultimately allowing them to earn micro-credentials around those skills. So that would be an example of a particular unit where we're highlighting and featuring a job and then taking it straight through to building skills that they need in order to pursue that career.
I like the example that you use of a product manager because so much of technology is not just about hands-on keyboard and writing lines of code. It's about identifying features and identifying customers and their motivations for using the software and things like that.
Well, it's a huge passion point of mine because it's one of the areas where I personally have spent a good portion of my career. And I think a lot of people don't realize that product management is a super key and important part of the product life cycle. And it also is the place where you can actually make a really big impact in being the bridge between technology and the business. You also have a lot of interface and interaction with the customer. And it's where a lot of the social aspects of technology and the collaborative aspects of technology come into play that I think a lot of people overlook and don't understand that not every one of the jobs in tech are, in fact, just banging away at the keyboard.
I worked as a product manager probably 10 plus years ago, and in the entire product management team, I was the only person with a technical background. Everybody else had some creative aspect, whether it was marketing or whether it was English or I think there was even a history major in the team. But they were all fantastic product managers, and they knew nothing about coding. So I think there's opportunities in technology for people who have a different background rather than just the traditional technology, who can really kind of get involved and find a position that really resonates with them.
I agree wholeheartedly, and that's part of our really big mission is to help kids to start to understand that maybe we're not attracting a more diverse audience to tech because we're not teaching them about the different roles and skills that you need. And, we focus on not only product management, but we focus on user experience, we focus on data science, and I think those are all really critical, burgeoning, in some cases, fields within tech.
So how do you make this appealing to a student who think that I'm not smart enough for this, or only boys do this, or, I don't fit the stereotypical mold of what this looks like? How do you go out and reach that underrepresented population?
Well, there's a bunch of different ways in which we've actually designed our product to do just that. And I think it's important to note that, the student population that we serve is 65% communities of color. And so in working with them, we've had the opportunity to learn from them directly and then evolve our technology really to meet their needs. And one point that I think is really important as we started to work with the kids is developing a sense of computing with purpose. And when we think about computing with purpose and aligning the work to values or interests the students already have, or particularly cultural tendencies that they may have, or interest in the community, then that really becomes very important. And they see that computing isn't just coding in itself, but that it has utility to solve other problems that they may want to solve in their community or in their work life. So that's one way. There are many others that kind of stem from thinking about the values, interests, and workforce characteristics that are most important to communities of color, and we know that from our data, and starting to highlight those experiences and those characteristics within not only the jobs that they're being exposed to, but also the challenges that they're completing and doing hands-on.
So you basically designed your program around what the students are already familiar with and comfortable with, and just integrated the technology education into their existing paradigm. Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, I think we really just try to learn from our students as much as possible. And since the very beginning, when we first won our first grant from the NSF, we were developing a body of research to help prove the efficacy of the outcomes that we're having. But along the way, it helped us to stop and really reflect and to not only listen to what our students were telling us, but listen to what our educators were learning alongside us. And that informed how we continued to iterate and develop our product.
So take me back to the founding years of your organization back in 2015. What made you decide to leave your day job and launch this with your co-founders?
I have throughout the years loved my technology teams and have gotten really excited about the problems we were solving and the incredibly brilliant people that I was working with. And I loved managing my teams and growing them. And yet I still was feeling like that there was something missing and that I wasn't necessarily bringing enough of purpose and mission into my job. And at the same time, my co-founder and I found ourselves at a crossroads where I was transitioning, and I recall a recruiter giving me a buzz in the fall of 2014 and giving me a list of all these incredible opportunities in the education technology space that he was asking if I would be interested in. And I knew I wanted to get back into ed tech to kind of feed that desire for more mission in my work. And he started to tell me all of the different opportunities, and I said, I actually am looking for C-level opportunities, and I'm not really interested in being the vice president of product or marketing, and, I feel like I've done all of that. And so, do you have any C-level roles available? And he's like, no, I don't. And I said, and frankly, if I don't find, kind of a top dog job here, then I'm going to start up. And I said, and actually, this is the first time I've said that out loud. And so I think from there were just a series of different things that happened up until, kind of finding myself at a crossroads with the current company I was at. And my co-founder today had picked me up and asked me what had, kind of gone on, and then said that she wondered if I was interested in starting something up. And we both just had an incredible passion for leadership and tech and trying to broaden participation. And we came up with the idea and quickly did a bunch of research. And one of the things that we found that was just pretty extraordinary is that just at the federal level alone, we had been spending over $4 billion a year on STEM programs. And at the same time, we were watching a yet dwindling set of females and students of color going into the fields. And we started to think very critically about, why these programs and experiences were not producing the results that we had wanted. And we found that so many of them were very place-based, that we were using career predictors that looked at the past to predict the future, and that's not going to solve, kind of the problems that we have today. And the more and more we looked, we just felt like that we had a space where we could really make an impact. And so we decided in January of 2015 to start the company, and we've been together ever since.
So, quick side comment. I have 3 daughters, and I'm doing everything I can in the world to push them into STEM because I see the potential there. And I'm also really hedging against them becoming discouraged along the way because they're girls, right? You can't do this because you're a girl, only boys do this. And every opportunity I can drag them out to an event, whether it's like a coding boot camp or it's, even these podcasts, I play them in the car sometimes. They're like, Daddy, is that you? And I'm like, yeah. But here, listen to this person talk about it. And I'm really trying to encourage them to think that, yes, I can do this, and to find something that resonates with them, whether it's a career that requires more customer interaction or if it's, just get involved in technology and engineering careers, because I think you'll really like this. And I think this is something that you can really gravitate towards. So
there's actually research out there that suggests that the parental influence is a lot stronger than the counselor and the teacher influence. And I think that's interesting because I think a lot of times we feature role models. So let me give you that kind of angle here. So the role models are the people that are really doing these jobs. But when we selected them, we were very, very conscious about who we were putting in that position. So 70% of our role models are female, and 40% of them are from communities of color. And what we find is that students, not only in the classroom, are selecting role models that look like them, but we're also finding that specifically girls are really stepping up, and when they can see themselves in the role, their intentions are really expanding. And so we measure kind of their intention at the beginning of starting to use Courgion and then with exposure. And what we find is that those students, predominantly girls, who have the lowest interest at the beginning actually have the highest intent, and their interest grows by 25% over time. The more exposure they have, the more interested they become. And it's because of that kind of increased exposure and context that they continue to get excited and want to continue the pursuit. And I think that's just a really important part of our story, is that our role models are different, and the way in which we expose students to our role models is also unique.
I think that's critical. Like you said, if students can find somebody that looks like them, they more easily see themselves in that role and not become discouraged and not self-opt out along the way. So being that intentional is probably very effective in delivering the content and getting students to buy in on it. So do you have any, were there any make or break moments in time of we couldn't get into this school district, or we couldn't get into this partnership fall through and we almost turned away? Or do you have any like of those bloody stories, or do you want to just move on to like more of the NSF funding and things like that?
No, I mean, I can talk to you about one of the first decisions that we made is, envision before we incorporated that we're, big data-driven decision makers. And so we just were like ripping through the competition and understanding where we were going to be best positioned. And what we released was an iPad app. And we were super proud of it. I mean, it was gorgeous. And we, in the first 100 days, put a student app and an educator app into market and recruited our first 200 students. And we're in 9 classrooms, seeing the impact that we were making. And, we were struggling to deal with the infrastructure of an app inside a school. And I remember a time where I left the school with 30 iPads and walked out because they had no tolerance for making sure that they were all updated on the latest OS and that I could download the app and have it ready for them to kind of kick off for the new school year. And here I am sitting in my kind of office with their iPads, really realizing that I can't get outside. I can't get, kind of to a public internet because that's not the way that these devices are configured. And I end up having to get back in the car and drive there and inside their school building do all the provisioning and the downloading. And, when I think back about those early days of dealing with the IT department, I loved all the wonderful IT people I met, but it was really just frustrating and time-consuming. And then all of a sudden we started to see this huge trajectory where there were a lot less iPads being purchased and the install base started to shrink. And it was like a really devastating issue that we're sitting there staring and thinking to ourselves, wow, we're paying a lot in merchant fees. We've taken on an incredible onus here of dealing with the technology infrastructure. And we just stopped and looked at each other and said, okay, pivot. We are going with a responsibly designed web app, and we're going to offload all of the people that we've just onboarded onto the iPad platform, and we're going to do this. And without even missing a beat, we just did it, and it was one of the best decisions that we've made. And we ended up doing that pivot in time for back to school for the 2015-2016 year. So we were in market with our very first product in April. We tested through the end of May with our students, and then we took the summer to basically rebuild, all the while still adding new role models and still going through all of the challenges of starting, an early business. And we're back and ready in time for that fall with our new app. So harrowing and exciting.
Very quick pivot to not only take advantage of the installed tech base, but also probably open it up to a lot more larger audience, I would suspect too, right?
For sure, yeah. I mean, we originally just felt like, if you go back and look at the numbers, literally, like the numbers started to plummet on iPad sales and install at like the exact time we took the decision. So it looked like it was just on a climb. And we felt like that they were going to continue to dominate. And yeah, just being where we are today, we're very happy. And when I talk to other startups who are, kind of struggling with the, native app, I'm always the first one that says, I don't know that you should go that path. And I don't know if you recently just saw the news, but and the Apple Store just sent out an announcement to everyone that they are no longer supporting profit sharing or apps and payments and such. So we really made the right decision, because if our business model relied on that right now, we would be in a really sad place.
So how are you guys funded? I mean, obviously you've got a lot of overhead and investments that you've made in this. How did you guys get off the ground? How did you take on money and additional investors?
So for year one, we bootstrapped. So that was just founder investments. And we felt very strongly that we did not want to take on debt. In June of our first year, in 2015, I found our very first National Science Foundation grant. And I remember that my co-founder, Laura, was on vacation. And I called her and I said, you're never going to believe what I just found. And it's really interesting, but it's due in 10 days. And it looks like we have to be signed up for a series of different systems. And there's like this cascading, like you have to get one number in order to get into the next system, into the next system. And I said, I don't even know if I can pull that off. But if I can, you'll just be getting back from vacation and we're going to need to write this application. And she's like, okay, good luck. So the next thing you know, we got approved for all the systems. She came back. We wrote the application. We'd never written a grant before, and we won it. So it was a pretty incredible bit of success for us right away. So we heard in September of 2015 early rumblings. It seemed like they were asking a lot of quality questions about our app submission, and it was later that fall that we found out that we were new grantees, and the money started to flow to us starting in January of 2016. And that money is just allowed to be used for research and development, so R&D efforts only, no commercialization. So that was the first step, and a really, really incredible validation to have the NSF feel that the work that we were doing was important enough to fund.
So that budget will cover developing the application and determining how best to deliver the content, right? Or what is their take on R&D?
So you're allowed to cover the cost of building the product and then researching, so using the data to make sure that you're having the intended impacts. So you can't use it for sales and marketing.
So how do you go about getting into a school district? What's your pitch?
So in addition to NSF, we also went through the AT&T Aspire Accelerator. We were invited to participate in that in the spring of 2016. So the timing was pretty incredible. And we were very quickly brought into that fold. And consequently, AT&T is the only investor on our cap table besides the founders and our employees. And then most recently, we've been very fortunate to receive the backing and support of the Colorado Office of Economic Development Advanced Industries grant. And that was awarded to us. We learned of it at the end of 2017, and that grant went into effect at the beginning of 2018. So that's helping us with our national expansion and with sales and marketing growth.
Is it only in school districts, or do you guys have the ability to deliver online content to students, more subscription based?
So in most cases, we work directly with schools inside school buildings during the school day, but we do actually have some partners with youth-serving organizations that help to support after-school programs or initiatives, and we are very successful working through those because of the fact that our application is available to anyone. So from an accessibility perspective, we can serve rural and urban and suburban communities, and a lot of our content is in fact delivered online. Now we do have supporting lesson plans and professional learning experiences for the educators to get them excited, and we have the opportunity and option to do those in an online way, or we have partnered with MindSpark Learning, which is a local organization here in Colorado, but with a national footprint, and in fact even an international footprint as they continue to expand and grow. And we are highly mission aligned in that we care very deeply for increasing educator capacity, especially around STEM, and giving them the confidence and the skills to go back and improve their teaching and learning. So we work with MindSpark not only on programs of practice for schools and districts, whereby they can come to the facility or we can go to them, anywhere in order to conduct those trainings. And then also MindSpark Courgion has teamed up with Metro State to create a graduate certificate program that also helps teachers become more competent and skilled in the areas of teaching computing education specifically. So we're really proud of that initiative.
So does this program kind of dovetail into college, or what's the next step after students complete the program and graduate from high school?
So we actually have some community college partners, and in that case you can see where the value proposition would be very strong. Community colleges are such an important part of our educational system, and particularly with alternative pathways and making sure that we're finding the right pathway for every student. But there's also an issue in that there's a huge amount of churn and some retention issues in the community college space. So for them to have a solution to help kids with pathway retention once they enter into a program can be pretty powerful. So it really, again, just depends on the problem that our partners are trying to solve and at the points of inflection that students are needing to make different decisions. So we have elementary schools that choose to go to middle schools that focus on health science. We have middle schools that choose to go to a certain high school because they want to go into the tech program, and it's not available everywhere. We also have high school students who are choosing work-based learning experiences like apprenticeships and internships, and they need to choose well because they're going to be spending and investing a lot of time in those initiatives. And then we also have community college kids who may have a declared or undeclared major, but that need that confidence and the ability to envision themselves in these career paths in order to continue to persist.
That's really serving a wide swath of a really niche audience, right? If you're focused primarily on the underserved, that's still a large contingent population out there that you're able to reach with your technology.
It is. It's exciting to be able to see how we can meet the needs of each of our partners. And one thing that was really important to us, as I mentioned earlier, just being very data-driven, is that we've actually built in some custom data analytics and surveying tools so that we can start to measure the things that matter for each of our partners and then give them the confidence that we're moving the needle on those indicators and outcomes that they want to achieve.
Were you focused on educating on on-the-job skills training for Sun employees, or what was your experience at Sun professionally?
So I was recruited to Sun Microsystems when I was working at General Electric, and at the time it was when Scott McNeely was really trying to emulate a lot of what Jack Welch was doing, and I was a Six Sigma black belt at GE. So for those of you who aren't aware of what that is, I was a process engineer. You're basically doing business transformation and change management in a highly systemic fashion using a lot of statistics and data. And that was something that was really important to Sun at the time, especially since they were going through such a significant evolution around the development of predictive software and analytics and how you could solve problems in the data center before they caused larger issues. And so I ran an engineering organization that was actually focused on what was called knowledge engineering. And it was a global team, and our job was to codify knowledge in a way that could be reused not only for engineers to be able to better serve customers, but also for customers to be able to self-serve. So it was the next evolution of case management systems where we were really focused a lot on ontological systems that were helping knowledge to be searched and surfaced in ways that it could be useful. But I also ran the business intelligence side of the house that was developing predictive analytics engines to solve those problems before they occurred. So we had a really interesting and amazing global portfolio. And thinking back to early days, I remember it was in 2001, and I was responsible for bringing Agile to our engineering organization. And we were using Agile in a way that was helping us to be more adaptable and iterative and to drive innovation and change for our customers. And I think it's just incredible that, flash forward today, that Agile and software development methodologies are the very things that we're actually teaching kids through our app. So I've had a lot of experience seeing how those can be used in the workplace, but just recently I was at the Computer Science Teachers Association, and there was this incredible teacher who was actually integrating Agile into courses inside her middle school, and how that was having an impact on teachers' ability to also be agile and to be iterative. So kind of seeing that full circle has been very interesting. And my experience at Sun was one of, nothing short of complete, awe of working with some of the most brilliant technical minds ever. And also they paid for my master's degree from the University of Denver in computer and information technology management. So I was super lucky.
Can we get into how big you guys are?
I don't know that bigness gives me any appeal right now. I mean, one thing that has been incredible this year is just that we finally have grown outside of the team of 3 of our co-founders. So, of course, we've leveraged incredible interns and volunteers over the past couple of years, but we've just recently welcomed 2 new people to the team, and it's been incredibly rewarding. One of the things that I really missed the first few years was the ability to really spend time mentoring and leading an organization, and I had 2 of the most high-performing, amazing co-founders that really didn't need to be led. So it was both a pro and just something that wasn't necessarily being fulfilled for me that is now being fulfilled.
So how did you decide the first new hire to bring on board?
Well, we definitely found that when you are a grant-serving organization, there's a lot of commitments that you're making, and we also had a lot of commitments to ourselves around establishing a brand and really focusing on our research and making sure that we had a product that was viable and getting customer feedback and refining and iterating and measuring. And what we also really care very deeply for is just making sure that the people who sign up to work with us side by side, that we give them all the energy and the support that they need. And what that meant for us is that as part of our national expansion, we knew that we needed help with partner development and cultivation and relationship management. And so that was the natural place that we wanted to invest in.
So are you guys growing your team? Are you looking for additional people to come on board, or are you just focused on scaling the product and then expanding the organization from there?
I don't know how this comes off in terms of the, kind of the audience that you have, but I joke to some of my friends and former colleagues over the years that know what it's like to be craving leads and data. And I have too much of both. There are so many stories that I want to tell. And I know this makes me sound like a complete geek, but we have comments, like verbatim comments that the students, they self-reflect. And so they document in the app. And I have to tell you that, like, there have been times on, like, Friday nights where I'm sitting there reading and, like, tears coming to my eyes and, like, laughter. And my husband is like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, my God, our data is amazing. And we have a machine learning sentiment engine that sits on top of it. And it helps us to really see, like, where we're making an impact and how kids are really, I guess, identifying, right? How are they perceiving themselves, and what is their occupational identity, and what does that look like? So when I start to think about the areas that I want to continue to grow, is I wish I had a full-time person helping us to evaluate that information and sharing those stories. Like, there's such a huge opportunity. You know, how to thank our 70-plus role models for volunteering their time and telling their stories. And I see the kids' reaction and, you know, how they refer to these role models. They're like, oh, that guy told me some amazing personal story and made me really interested. And, you know, like, there's just so much that could be done in terms of the storytelling and the narrative. And that is a place where I would love to have more time and energy to focus and, you know, kind of really invest in sharing that information, because I think that it can help us all be better coaches and mentors and advocates by just hearing directly from those kids.
Telling the students stories and getting the results out there to the mentors, I'm sure, is hugely gratifying for them.
Yeah, I think it's a public service initiative. But to your point, we're not growing right now. We just added our second, kind of non-founder hire, and she's killing it. And our R&D is, pretty much funded through 2019. But our sales and marketing folks, from which we funded from the OEdit grant. So what that means for us is I've got the necessary runway that I need from an educational technology startup to grow the business and to do so debt-free, and to start to build up that engine so that we can be a fully self-sustaining organization based on our own growth. And that's been important to us.
So a couple more years of taking advantage of the R&D money, and then potentially, are you guys looking to go national?
When we say national today, we've doubled down on a handful, half dozen of states, and that was done through some pretty concise analysis of looking around legislation and funding and educator prep programs and policy, and saying, these are the states that look like us that need this type of tool to help students and to support the economic needs of a fast-growing community. So that was kind of more the strategic look. And on the flip side, just through our network and our white papers and our marketing, we have new partnerships in Chicago, Michigan, Wisconsin, Alabama, Maryland. So we're starting to see these new partnerships start to pop up.
It's got to be exciting times for sure.
Yeah, it is. We just released our brand new website too, and that was last Friday. And we've totally, it hadn't gotten a facelift since the beginning. So it was really important for us to start talking about our new product that we just put into market in time for back to school, and we updated it with fresh student quotes and such. And it's been really awesome because I've gone to a number of different educators and gotten their feedback, and they've all given me the thumbs up. It looks beautiful, the messaging is dead on, so we're doing a lot of kind of, do we have the right tone for the new product?
So, Melissa, I really appreciate your time coming on Colorado TechCast today. You guys are up to so many really amazing things with technology and targeting that underserved population of students who may not think that they're cut out for technology, right? But you're really able to hone in on not only the technical aspect of what technology is about, but also how they can bring in different aspects of their personality that resonate with them. For those people who are listening and want to find out more information about Courgion, how can they do that?
Thanks for having me. It's been great. I'm honored to be included on the show. If you are interested in hitting me up directly, feel free to email me at melissa@couragion.com. And I'm always looking for excited, passionate, interested individuals who are serving youth or educating youth. And additionally, on our website, I would encourage you to check out our blog. We're pretty active bloggers, and we love to hear about what you think about what we're doing and what we're talking about. So we look forward to hearing from you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Colorado TechCast. Visit our website at coloradotechcast.com for episode show notes with links to all the great resources we've talked about in this episode. While you're there, click the subscribe button in iTunes so you'll never miss a new episode. I'm Trapper Little, and I'll talk to you again on the next episode of Colorado TechCast.